Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Cushing, and I am a research and instruction librarian at Catholic University of American Libraries. I am joined by my colleague, Kevin Gunn, and he is the coordinator of digital scholarship at Catholic University of America Libraries. Both Kevin and I will be monitoring the chat for any questions. This workshop is being recorded and will be made available at a later date, along with the slides. Today, we're going to be exploring HathiTrust and using HathiTrust analytics to run a text analysis. Here's the outline for the workshop. We're going to do an introduction to HathiTrust and the HathiTrust Research Center, finding textual data, and an intro to text analysis, mainly a named entity recognition algorithm, and then a wrap-up. HathiTrust is a nonprofit member organization founded in 2008. It's based at the University of Michigan, and there are 160 members serving 220 campuses. The mission of HathiTrust is to support teaching, learning, and scholarship by operating a large-scale digital library. HathiTrust is unlike similar organizations in that the library it operates is not a subscription database. The mission is also different from that of Internet Archive or Project Gutenberg. It has its roots in the Google Books, but it's an example of libraries banding together to build infrastructure for a shared cause. It is non-commercial and non-governmental and welcomes input from the member community. HathiTrust balances preservation with access by operating a preservation repository of digitized content and providing access to all that it is legally able to via the digital library website. HathiTrust was primarily built through mass digitization, which is approach to scanning at scale. Books and book-like objects are scanned shelf by shelf, with little to no decision-making about whether to scan individual items. All told, to amass the HathiTrust collection took more than 3 billion page turns by thousands of scanning staff over the last 12 years. You can sometimes find artifacts of that labor in the scans, such as in the picture on the slide. The HathiTrust collection contains more than 18 million items digitized at member libraries, which are academic and research libraries, and content is added to it daily. Within such a large body of materials, there are discrete sub-collections, such as U.S. federal government documents. The content in HathiTrust ranges from the very old to the contemporary, with items dating back to the 1500s and a concentration in the 20th century. The predominant language in HathiTrust is English, but the chart on the slide shows the way that the share of English in the collection has grown over time. This bar chart from December 2021 displays the general subject areas for HathiTrust books based on Library of Congress classification. Here's the data with subject first and the count of titles second. You'll notice general works has 43,000 items, but they are much larger, including philosophy with 363,000, world history with different places such as Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand with 576,000 volumes, and further down, the largest being language and literature with over 1 million different volumes. The overall HathiTrust collection mirrors the print collections from which it was scanned, which are primarily large, well-resourced academic libraries. This means that library acquisition and publishing patterns have an impact on the kind of materials you will find in HathiTrust. For example, while you are likely to find many editions of Pride and Prejudice, you are less likely to find popular fiction, such as romance novels. HathiTrust follows many library conventions in how it describes and displays materials in the repository. This means that there are certain aspects of HathiTrust, infrastructure, and practices that are very library-like and occasionally make it challenging to approach the repository as a data source. The HathiTrust Research Center is concerned with allowing users to gather, analyze, and produce new knowledge primarily via computational text analysis. It facilitates large-scale computational research of HathiTrust Digital Library content. The center, which is located at Indiana University and the University of Illinois, does various research and development for non-consumptive text analysis, a concept that we will be explaining in later slides. It conducts user studies, finds cutting-edge technological solutions, and builds tools and services. HathiTrust Research Center Analytics is the main website for the HathiTrust Research Center, and it's home to tools, datasets, and virtual programming environments. HathiTrust Research Center tools and services operate within a non-consumptive research paradigm. This is a term for text analysis research that lets a person run tools or algorithms against data without letting them read the text. The precise definition is shown here on the slide. Research in which computational analysis is performed on a text, but not research in which a researcher reads or displays substantial portions of the text to understand the expressive content presented within it. Non-consumptive research complies with copyright law because of the distinction in laws between ideas and expressions. It is sometimes called non-expressive use because it works with ideas instead of specific expressions, hence the term non-expressive. The non-consumptive research paradigm is the foundational underlying structure of the HathiTrust Research Center work. In concrete terms, here are all the kind of analysis activities we believe falls within the non-consumptive research paradigm. It include tasks such as text extraction, textual analysis and information extraction, linguistic analysis, automated translation, image analysis, file manipulation, OCR correction, and indexing and search. There are several non-consumptive ways non-consumptive access can be structured. The first is partial. Access to full data is limited, but the outputs from analysis are open and the tools are also open. The second is transform. The data is pre-processed or transformed before access is provided, which means that both the output and access to the transformed data is open. The third is capsule. The capsule approach provides access to full data as allowed, but the output and access are highly controlled. The HathiTrust Research Center translates the three models for non-consumptive research into three distinct approaches. The first is web-based tools, or partial. They have derived data sets, i.e. transform, and the third is secure data capsules, or a capsule. Let's talk about finding textual data. Building corpora, a collection of written text, typically involve doing some deduplication, which means getting rid of multiple volumes. What to keep and discard will be dependent on the specific needs of the project. Some examples of deduplication a researcher might choose include choosing the volume with the best OCR, or optical character recognition quality, choosing the earliest edition, or choosing editions without forewords or afterwords. HathiTrust data is in the form of metadata and full text data. The metadata is primarily bibliographic metadata that comes to HathiTrust in the form of MARC catalog records submitted by the contributing libraries. Once they come in, these records are augmented, though not corrected, and stored by HathiTrust. The MARC metadata is made available in several forms. You can see it on the web under the catalog record for an item. The full record, with all the data, is not easily downloaded at this time, although you can access abbreviated records via several means, including a bibliographic API and a big tab delimited file called the Hathi files. There is also full text data generated through the optical character recognition resolution automatically during the digitization process. That means that the OCR quality is variable based on the characteristics of the original item and the software used to do the OCR, which has gotten better with time. The OCR is also not hand-corrected or marked up, so it would be considered dirty OCR. One of the most confusing pieces of getting started with HathiTrust for text analysis is understanding what data is available to you where and in what format. You don't need to memorize this table, but hopefully it helps clarify that there are multiple data access options with different formats and rights statuses available and with different restrictions. Choosing which one to work will depend on the needs of the researcher and the research project. For example, a researcher who wants full text public domain data to work with on their own computer can request a dataset from HathiTrust that can include up to the entire public domain set of content from HathiTrust. A researcher who wants to work with data from in-copyright volumes on their own computer might instead choose the HathiTrust Research Center extracted features dataset. So as long as pre-processing that is done to create the files, which we will explore in more detail later, is compatible with their research needs. The takeaway is that depending on the method of access to the data will be restricted in different ways. The HathiTrust Research Center can also provide access to textual data and assist users in building up text corpora for analysis by facilitating the creation of worksets. HathiTrust Research Center worksets are the one way the HathiTrust allows users to create text corpora to analyze. A workset is a user-created collection of text from the HathiTrust Digital Library. You can think of them as textual datasets. The idea behind worksets is that researchers can build their own collections, which is something they are used to doing in the analog world, and these worksets can be cited by and shared with other users, which helps encourage ensuring reproducibility. For example, other people can test your results when they run the same analysis on shared worksets. Worksets are also suited for non-consumptive access, which you may remember means users cannot directly consume the text in full, but can run tools or algorithms against data for research analysis. Let's get into an introduction to text analysis. Before we look further at how the HathiTrust Research Center supports text analysis, let's explore what we mean by text analysis. Text analysis is a subset of data analysis. Broadly speaking, it's the process by which computers are used to reveal information in and about the text. Computer algorithms can discern patterns and bodies of often unstructured text. Unstructured means that little is known about the semantic meaning of the text data and that it does not fit in a defined data model or database. An algorithm is simply a computational process that creates an output from an input. In text analysis, the input would be unstructured text, and the output would be indicators to help you reveal different things about the text. It should be noted that text analysis is more than just search, meaning it's not just about discovery and knowing something is there. It is also about exploring what does it mean for something to be there. For instance, knowing the word creativity appears in X number of volumes is only the first step. We also want to know, what does this tell us? Text analysis can be used for a variety of purposes. It can be used for exploratory and analytical research, such as seeking out patterns in scientific literature to pick up trends in medical research otherwise difficult to see from the vantage point of an individual reader. It can also be used in developing tools that can be used in our daily lives. For example, creating spam filters to identify spam email. We'll look at more in-depth research examples as we go along. So, how does text analysis work in general? Text analysis usually follows these steps. First, the text needs to be transformed from a form that human readers are familiar with to something that the computer can read. This means we need to break the text into smaller pieces and abstract or reduce it into things that a computer can crunch. Counting is often what happens next. Some of the things that are often counted include words, phrases, and parts of speech. The number of these counts can be used to identify characteristics of text. Then researchers can apply computational statistics to the counts of textual features and develop hypotheses based on these counts. Understanding text via text analysis has a significant impact on how research is being conducted. In a general sense, the shift in the researcher's perspective leads to the shift in the research questions. Text analysis techniques are sometimes called distant reading. This term is coined by Stanford professor Franco Moriarty, meaning reading literature not by studying particular texts, but by aggregating and analyzing massive amounts of text and reading them at a distance. This scaling and distancing can bring more insights from a very different vantage point. It is also worth mentioning that text analysis doesn't have to be the primary method in a research project. It may be just one step in the entire process, or it can be combined with close reading. This approach has been called intermediate reading or distance close reading. This shift in research perspective allows for new kinds of research questions to be asked, or for old questions to be answered in new ways. Here are some possibilities that text analysis can bring to researchers. It can explore questions not provable by human reading alone. It allows larger corpora for analysis. It allows studies that cover longer time spans. As pointed out by Lodwin and Goodwin, text analysis techniques are often best when combined with qualitative assessment and theoretical context. Text analysis research questions explore a wide range of topics from biomedical discovery to literary history. Research questions that are conducive for text analysis method may involve these characteristics: change over time, pattern recognition, comparative analysis. Now, Kevin will lead us in a demo of the HathiTrust Digital Library as well as the HathiTrust Research Center analytics.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for the great conceptual philosophical overview of text analysis. I'm going to now share my screen. Oh dear. Let's see. So the first place that we're going to go to is the HathiTrust Digital Library. So if you are a CUA student or faculty member, hey, congratulations, you have access to all the wonderful volumes that are in this collection. First thing we want to do is point out the URL here is www.hathitrust.org. And that is where we'll begin. We will be going over to the analytics from HathiTrust in a bit, but right now we're going to do some good old-fashioned library research. We're going to search their catalog and see what we can come up with. So let us go first up here. I'm actually going to log in here. There we go. So you know, the top right-hand corner says log in. So you're going to click on that. You're going to have a pop-up menu that comes that pops up, and it's going to ask you to find your institution. In this particular case, it already knows I'm at Catholic University of America. So great. I click on that, and you'll get your typical red page where you have to use your Cardinal ID, your username, and your password to get in. So I will do that. You'll know you're on the specific entry point here because that's HathiTrust listed there. All right, so we log in, and if everything goes according to plan, we will have ourselves here listed up here. So we're good to go in that regard. All right. So the first thing we're going to do here is we have a little bit of fun here. We're going to go up here and we're going to use a keyword search. We're going to type in creative with an asterisk. So we're looking at, you know, creative, creativity, that sort of thing. And we're just going to see what we can find in HathiTrust. So here we have a list of items. You'll notice we have 10,000 items, and that is quite a bit for doing a large scale data set project. So the upper limit is 3,000 volumes. If you're doing anything larger than that, then you will need to talk with HathiTrust folks, and you can contact them at help@hathitrust.org, and they'll set you up and talk to you and you know, determine best practices, that sort of thing. So it's definitely something that you want to do. If you're doing a smaller scale project, something less than 3,000 or less than 1,000, then you can usually explore on your own time doing that. So let us take a look at the faceted searching on the side here. So we're looking for creative here. And if we scroll down a little ways, you can limit to various times and languages and places of publication and that sort of thing. So I've decided that I'm going to be looking at art journals, that have used the word creative or creativity, that sort of thing. And I'm going to look from 1926 and before. So I'm going to keep everything in the public domain for this. So I'm going to select a number of these going here. And it's kind of, you kind of have to play around with the facets here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to data publication. Oh. You could take a look at that from that end. What I also recommend that you could do is go to advanced searching, always my preference. So what we can do is we can redo this search here. So again, I get the same results, but now I'm going to revise this advanced search. As you can see, it's much easier to pull different components together. So in this case, I'm going to do publication year, and I'm going to do before 1926. And I'm going to look at English. There we go. What type of format do I want? What I would prefer is, I mentioned journal. So there it is. Now you can just scroll, there's a list there, and you can scroll through, and you would find it that way too. So there's a lot of different formats listed here, a lot. So something to consider. So we're going through advanced search again. And we're now down to 646, which is pretty interesting. Well, I noticed from here that we have a lot of different material listed here. We have catalogs and circulars and that sort of thing. So we could look at something like the original format, journal, serial, that sort of thing, sort of further reduce it. Another what we can do is go under subject right here, because we don't want necessarily catalog and circular as you see here. We can do art periodicals, which I mentioned before. And now we're down to 134. So finding material for your project is very much going to depend on how well you can search a good old library catalog. So I would recommend spending some time searching, exploring HathiTrust here and seeing what is available. You're going to have to do a lot of reiterative work here, I think is the main takeaway. All right. So looking at this here, I need to build a collection. So I got some results, right? So now I got to build this collection here. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to select everything on this page, and it just gives you the first page. So the first 100, and it says, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to add a new collection here. So I'm testing this before. Now I'm going to add this here and say, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to do? What's your collection name? So I'm going to do art journals before 1926. And what I recommend is that you give a good description of what it is that you're going to describe, what it is that you limited to, what exactly search terms you use, that sort of thing, so that anyone who comes later will be able to look at your result and say, oh yeah, this is how they pulled it together. So this is a very good practice to deal with any sort of data set. You want to sort of leave a data dictionary that people can use and determine what was included, what was excluded, what were the limitations, everything that's listed in there. So I'll just type that in there as an example. And then, you can put my name there so people know. Now, right here it says, is this collection visible to others? Well, for the purpose of us doing analytics, you have to make it public. Now you could go back later after you transported this data set into the analytics platform. You can go back and make it private. But right now, you have to make it public. So, and sometimes when the transfers don't work, it's because of that. So we're going to do this. We're going to do save changes. There we go. And what we're going to do is we got the first 100. And you'll notice right down here, we're on page 2. So we're going to go to the next page. And we will select the remaining ones, and we're going to add it to our journals before 1926. There we have it. So we've collected what we wanted, right? But we haven't really gone through the material. So if I go to art journals before 1926, into my data set, I can start looking at this and start paring it down. So Ben had mentioned duplication, and that is very important because if you're doubling volumes on that and you're trying to do analysis, then they're going to count that stuff twice, right? Or more. And that's going to skew your data analysis results. So you have to be very careful what is you're looking at here. So I went through this and I recognized that, back in the day, there weren't too many journals on art anyway. So the dominant one here is the American Magazine of Art. So this is the one we'll find most of all. And again, I can't reiterate this enough, repeat this enough, is that you have to look at your data. You have to look at what is, so you have to ask yourself, okay, the American Magazine of Art is listed here. Are there other art journals? Are there? I don't know. That's something that you have to bring to this project if you're looking at this. Maybe there's 2 or 3, and maybe they're not in here for whatever reason, before 1926, maybe after 1926. So these are sorts of questions that you have to ask when you're going through this. Next thing you want to look at is what it is that's being included. So look at this, American Magazine of Art, volume 8, number 3 to 9, number 3 to volume 9, volume 8 to volume 9, number 2, 1917, right? Okay, that's fine. But look, they have volume 8 right here. So there is some duplication, but it's overlap. So I'm inclined to click on that, but I want to know, do we have volume 9 listed in here? So we have to scroll a little ways. Oh, we do have volume 9 listed here. So look, we have this again, this scenario here where we have volume 9's included to volume 10. So you have to be very careful. So I'm going to click these two. And I'm not going to select all that because that could be a problem. What I'm going to do, so I'm going to remove them. So my 134 items will become 132. So now I think I have a better qualities collection here. So I can go through the entire set and do that and make sure that I have a complete run for this particular journal as an example. All right. So that is the basic thing. I just want to show you before we move along. If you look under the collection here, so you notice under the collection you have featured collections. So if I click on that, I come to this. So here's an interesting thing that you should be aware of. Maybe someone has already pulled together, say, Jane Austen's, all her novels, for example. So you really don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can see what is available already and go in, because odds are, if someone's done that, they've probably also cleaned it up and made it a better set. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can go in and take a look at material that's listed in there. So here's something, the adventure novels of G.A. Henty. Never heard of this person, but sounds pretty interesting. Let's see, if you go up here. So these are collection titles. If you go to, these are featured collections that HathiTrust has spent quite a bit of time on working with the individual scholars in that. But if you really want to go wild, you can check out the 8,400 data sets listed here under shared collections. And you'll notice they can be as small as 1 or 2 items up to much larger ones. So, and they'll have little descriptions saying what they cover and that. So it's kind of fun to get some ideas. You just can go through and take a look at a lot of this material and see what's available in there. You know, so records and briefs of the United States Supreme Court. And here you go. You can go through and take a look at that. So you do have a lot of ways that you can gather the information into your data set. Right. So that is that. I'm going to go back to our data set listed here. So I'm going to leave that right now as is. I'm not going to close it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to analytics. So here's the second second platform that you're going to be using when you want to do the data analysis now. You notice at the top right-hand corner says sign in. So you'll have to sign into this as well. Again, search for Catholic University of America. You click on that and you'll notice up here that we're in. So if you do have any problems or issues, do get in contact with me, gunn@cua.edu, and I can figure out what exactly is the problem, if I needed to talk to the people at HathiTrust or not. So just to let you know. All right. So what we can do is very quickly here, I just want to show you the main platform. So I'm going to click on Explore up here, and you'll notice they have a number of interesting little fun tools to play around with. If you're not too sure this is for you, you can come and take a look at this. So no commitment to buy, as they say. So if you're looking at something like gendered characterizations, English language fiction, and you want to know how both genders use the particular words in over the last 200 plus years, you can take a look at it. So here's the word heart and description, and you can see heart and description by the character of the gender, the feminine and masculine. And if you scroll a little ways down, here's it by the author gender, feminine and masculine. So you see there's some overlap in that. Look in here. So this is sort of work that you can do with the Analytics Center here. So I just wanted to point that out. You have the bookworm listed here. They can show you work trends. You can look at bar charts, maps, heat maps, that sort of stuff, basic data analysis stuff to give you an idea that you can use to sort of begin exploring what's available in the HathiTrust Digital Library. All right, so we have all that. Going back to here, I just wanted to point out a number of these things here. We're going to be going into algorithms in a minute. We have data capsules where you can create a capsule of data using resources. They have templates in there. We have data sets as well that one could use listed here, and other features in that. I'll be actually doing a follow-up workshop to this on November 17th at 12 noon, and we'll be exploring the data capsules and more in-depth in the work sets and the data visualization stuff. So I encourage you, if you're interested in today's workshop, definitely come for that, because that's where the really, really, really fun stuff begins to happen. So, all right. So what we're going to do here, we created a data set in the digital library, right? So they call it work sets here. That's fine. We're going to go up here to work sets. And as you can tell, I've already started working on a couple of these things here. Just to give you a listing that you can, this is where you can keep track of your work sets and how you can go about using them and that. What we're going to do is we're going to go up here where it says create a work set. And we're going to come to this page here. And it's going to ask you, like, how would you want to create your work set? So you have a number of different ways that you can do this. So you can upload a file, and this is usually a work set of the HathiTrust volume IDs. So that's kind of great because every volume in HathiTrust Digital Library has a unique volume ID. So if you really know the volumes that you're using, you can use those, and you can keep them in a text file and then upload them without a problem. So you can upload these. All the files needs a volume ID, a list of volume IDs, so no other metadata is required for it. One way you might have a list of volume IDs is by reusing a list created by another researcher, for example. So again, you're not reinventing the wheel. So for example, Ted Underwood is a professor of English literature. He's also a digital humanist who works in computational linguistics and text analysis. So he's released a volume information on his analysis regarding poetry, prose, and nonfiction. So if you're looking for fiction, HathiTrust, you might start with his list and then work backwards to the volumes you wish you want to study. So there's different ways you can get do things in order to build a set. So next you can use the import from the HTRC work set builder. We're not going to do that today. We are going to go to the third part here, the import from HathiTrust. Okay, so this is what I'm going to click on here. And we're going to come to this page. So, you know, we were doing the searching in the digital library. We found our art journals published before 1926 on the concept of creativity. So now we want to bring that all over to analytics so we can take a look at it. So what it asks for is the HathiTrust collection URL. So golly gee, what is that? Right? So we got to go back to the digital library. I'm now in the digital library. See, Alex, digital library. So you're working with both of these platforms. Now you'll notice what can you use. You can use the URL here, but it's very problematic. And I tried it and I got invalid URL, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, fine. So what's the proper way? So if you look under collection tools under share, you have a link to this collection. Oh, wonderful. So you can copy and paste. Good old-fashioned copy and paste. I cannot overemphasize the importance of this basic skill. Now, once you've got this in here, the next step is to do fetch collection. So I clicked on fetch collection and yay, it worked. Data retrieved from source. So I'm good to go. It even gave us the name. It even gave us a description. And if I want to do private work set, I could, but I'm not going to. So what it will do is it will create a work set here. I'm going to click on there and we wait. Okay, and here it is. So here's our work set. So it's about time for lunchtime, so I'm not going to do anything right now. Maybe we'll come back later and do that. So, you know, there's always steps in the process where you can stop and, you know, take a breather. And here's one of them right here. All right, so that is that. Now you have to ask yourself, okay, I've got my data set, but how current is it? How current, right? Because what you've got here it is. But what you've got, you know, the digital library is dynamic. There's always adding stuff to it and they're taking stuff away. So how do I know that what I'm working with here, all the material is actually available, right? That's an important question. Well, guess what? You've got validate a work set. So I'm going to click on that, and it gives you this. So you've got to understand the analytics that they're using. They're very much tied with the digital library. They've tweaked it, the algorithms and stuff like that, and the metadata so that it works well together. And this is part of the output for that, if you will, is that they're able to validate what you've got very quickly. So they'll give you a list here, limitations that you may have. So, you can use CSV, pardon me, text format. Files can't be larger than 75 megs, no more than 3 million volumes, that sort of thing. And they list these other things here for header rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do select work set. And holy moly, man, I don't have my work set listed here, it looks like. A whole bunch of other people's stuff, right? So that's all the work sets that people have in here, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under all work sets, a little arrow here, and I'm going to look at my work sets. Woo, there we go. Much better, right? So by the way, I'm researcher 1296, and that's how I'll be referred to from now on forever. So just to let you know. So I'm going to click on this. So select a work set, or you can validate it by uploading a work set, but that's fine. I've already uploaded it. So I'm going to do validate, and whew, it worked. So we have, this tells you this, and you can now download it. So it's now, you'll notice right here, it's now a CSV, and it'll have the basic information that's listed in there. I won't go into it, but you can take my word for it. All right, so that's it. You've got your data set, you've validated it's current, right? The volumes. And now we can do one example of using an algorithm and to see what we've got. So at this point, I'm going to go up to algorithms listed here, and I'm going to click on that. And we have a number of features, the extracted features that we'll do in a couple weeks. We've got the topic modeling explorer right here. Ooh, that'll be in a couple weeks. Stay tuned. We've got the token count and tag cloud creator. That's fun. We will do that in a couple weeks too. So we'll take a little deep dive here. Today, we're going to do named entity recognizer. So what it does, it will go through our volumes, and it will generate a list of all the names of people and places, dates, times, percentages, and all that, and found in the work set. And then they'll spit out a list of an Excel file, if you will, showing you the entity names and what type of entity names they are, that sort of thing. So very basic. So you can run this. They do tell you about the limits, fewer than 33,000 volumes and less than 3 gigs. So it's something to worry about, because when you're doing something like a name entity recognizer, is taking a lot of time to go through all those volumes and sorting out everything. So what we'll do is we're going to execute this. And you'll notice it gives you the descriptions, and it tells you what it's doing, how it works. So it breaks it down, extracts the body text only for analysis, which is good, right? And then it does a whole bunch of other things, combines the hyphenated words, things you don't think about until you're exposed to them. So it takes care of a lot of these problems. It's telling you that's using the Stanford Natural Language Processing model, which is good. Lots of NLP models out there. It's using the Stanford, and it makes sense because it's using the Stanford named entity recognizer here. So it's always important when you're using these platforms, where are they getting their list of stop words? Where are they getting their models from? That sort of thing. So you have to bring that sort of, conceptual understanding, that sort of database understanding, the content understanding. You're bringing all these dimensions together into your project. So you have to do quite a bit of planning up front. So, all All right, so you can look at this review and all this sort of thing. Let me go down here. So I'm going to do art journals before 1926. Thank you very much. Very slow typing. And it's going to say, which ones do you want to use? I want to use my usual ones. So I'm going to go to my work sets. All right, and there we go. So I'm going to click on that. And what language you want? I want English, and it submits it. So here's what we've got. We have a art journals before, which is staging now. So it hasn't done anything. I submitted this running one, merely 132 volumes, right? I submitted it at 10:30 this morning, and it's still running. So this is something you have to understand. Since you're using someone else's platform, you're going to be queuing up and doing, waiting for that. So it's probably good just, you can log out, go do something, go mow your lawn or whatever, and come back. It'll probably still be running, right? This is 132 volumes. Imagine if you're doing 3,000 and you're doing this, it's going to take quite a bit of time. So it's very important to understand that. Now I am going to, let's see, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go there. No, shoot. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second because I want to show you the end result. And let's see. Okay, there it is. There we go. So here's the end result of an example I got from, I think it was off the web or something. United States presidential speeches, and this is what you'll output will come if it's successful, is that it will tell you the entities.csv that you can download. It gives you the volume numbers, it gives you the page sequences, it gives you the entity that's listed. So here 1977, and it tells you the type, the name of it. So in this case, date. So going through here, you can see organization or organization date, location. Has Washington here. Is that the same as DC? Because it both has location. I don't know, but that's something to consider. So that is the presentation for today. And at this point, I could entertain any questions that people may have. Could put them right in the chat. All right, then. I don't think we're having any questions. So there it is. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you to Ben for giving that wonderful presentation at the beginning. Like I said, we will be doing another workshop on November 17th where we get into greater detail of this, and we will have good constructive examples and results from that. If you do need any assistance, please reach out to Ben or myself. Ben, the email is Cushing, b@cua.edu, and I, of course, am gunn@cua.edu. So you can reach out to us and we can start having a conversation. So thank you very much, everyone.